I think just a brief explanation. Apologise for the delay. Council needed.
Thank you and welcome back. We apologise for the inconvenience. Council had to sort out a legal matter, and we'll get back on to item 3, question time public. Mr Benny.
The next question is from Zerga Teresa of Dandenong. If, as per the answer at the last council meeting, the master plan is a high-level strategy, when is the public consultation going to be on the stage 1 plan, as that is where the concerns Dandenong residents have about the project may be addressed? We accept that this question relates to the Capital Alliance project in central Dandenong, and Mr Bosman can respond, Mr Mayor.
Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through yourself to Zerga Teresa, in accordance with the advice provided at the council meeting on the 11th of April, council is seeking support from Development Victoria to revisit the community engagement and consultation process and arrange a community information session that addresses the question canvassed and outlines the next steps in the process, which will lead to the commencement of stage 1 works. Council will provide further publicly accessible information on this matter once the response is received from Development Victoria. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny.
The next question is from Sylvia Mastrogiovanni of Dandenong. Has Council put in a submission about the Capital Alliance recognising resident concerns about the process and the potential issues with this development? Mr Bosman, Mr Mayor.
Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To Sylvia Mastrogiovanni, this question is not unrelated to the previous question and answer. As I mentioned, we are seeking from Development Victoria their support for a re-engagement, revisiting the community consultation and engagement process. And Council will then consider the concerns, the responses from Development Victoria in respect of the action to be taken by it and the information that then comes out of that revisited or re-engaged process. And once we have that information to hand, Council will then be in a position to determine its stance and how it will then respond further. So I think it's important that we allow that process or the Development Victoria to re-engage with that process. Let's see what questions are answered, what processes are clarified. And then once we have that as a council, councillors can then decide on a further submission or an approach to Development Victoria. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny.
The next question is from Mirko Velic of Dandenong. In the last meeting, the plan to destroy 71 trees in the West Dandenong district was put on hold. Later, it was revealed that there are still 16 trees that have been labelled unhealthy. 16 trees is still around a quarter of the trees. This seems like a lot and unlikely. According to the council tree removal retention criteria, a tree can only be removed for some of the following reasons. 1, the tree is dead or in severe decline, low useful life expectancy. 7, the tree or group of trees is included in council's street tree renewal program action plan. Reasons 2 to 6 appear not to be relevant here. Stating a tree is merely unhealthy does not appear to be in accordance with the removal criteria. This also does not appear to be in accordance with the tree renewal action plan, in part due to the large percentage of trees being targeted, 1 in 4 or 25%. From Council's tree removal retention criteria document, Greater Dandenong's current tree canopy is one of the lowest in Melbourne, so Council have committed to planting more trees in public spaces, retaining as much existing canopy as possible and establishing a clear criteria for tree removal for both Council and developers. That ends the quote. Any tree is a major asset and its removal should not be taken lightly. It should be a serious matter and decided by trained professionals. Which 16 trees have been labelled as such? Is there an arborist report for each tree? Can we see the reports? If not, why not? Should there be efforts made to preserve any tree, especially in light of the statement concerning lack of canopy coverage? Ms Goulden can respond, Mr Mayor.
Ms Budden?
Or Mr.
Mr.
Sorry,
Cinquegrano.
Mr. Cinquegrano, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to start by explaining that Council has a strategic approach to managing its urban streetscapes, and this is documented in the Greening Our City Urban Street Tree Strategy 2018 to 2028. The strategy identifies 2 species found in Hemming Street that are considered to be unsuitable, and the strategy requires a gradual transition of these out of the tree population overall. This means removing them over time and then replacing them with more suitable species. This is the primary criteria that we've applied to identifying them for removal. In specific response to the questions raised, I can advise that there is not an arborist report for each tree in Hemming Street. The identification of the trees is part of a broader strategic community safety project. A forum of interested residents to discuss these concerns and options to improve the landscape of the precinct will be held in June, prior to the matter being considered by Council in July 2022. Any resident or community member who has raised concerns or expressed their interest in this project will be invited to discuss the concerns further through this consultation process.
Thank you, Mr. Cinquegrano. Mr. Benny?
The next question is also from Mirko Velic of Dandenong. In the last meeting, the plan to destroy 71 trees in the West Dandenong district was put on hold. The reasons Council gave for tree removal are some of the following: tripping hazards, barren scorched earth, appearance of nature strips, lines of sight blocking views down the street, reduced public lighting, entrapment zones. I'm not aware of many, if any, tripping hazards in the street. This could be solved in any case with some basic maintenance. I have not seen any so-called barren scorched earth nature strips. The majority look fine to me. Where are these? If you cut down the trees, then the views down the street won't be worth looking at. As it is, one can see a fair way down the footpaths anyway. Do you want the street to look like a Bunnings car park? How exactly are trees creating entrapment zones? Couldn't you claim every driveway as an entrapment zone? It was stated that Hemmings is a narrow street. It is in fact a wide street. Public lighting could easily be increased. 1, move some lights. 2, add lights to the 12 or so telegraph poles that currently do not have a light on them. 3, add lights to the back of poles here and there to shine on the paths. 4, how much light do we really want in the street? I'm not sure we want it lit up like the MCG at night. One could use these same arguments to cut down every tree in every city. Maybe try it in Kew or Malvern, etc. See how you go. These reasons appear to contradict the Council tree removal retention criteria document. Why would this plan be allowed in this case? It doesn't make sense. This one will be referred to Ms Budden, Mr Mayor.
Ms Budden?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for your question on the proposed landscape improvements to the Hemming Street precinct. This element of the state government grant project has been placed on hold pending further community consultation. An open forum for interested residents to discuss concerns such as these and options to improve the landscape in the precinct will be held shortly in June, prior to the matter being considered by Council in July. Any residents or community member who's raised concerns or expressed interest in the project, including Mirko Velic, will be invited to discuss these concerns further through this open consultation process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Budden. Mr Benny?
Next question is from Shiva Sinha of Dandenong. I asked at the last council meeting why is the detailed cost analysis on the Dandenong Community Hub likely to take another 2 months, and why it would not be fast-tracked with appropriate expert advice from someone in the building industry. I was told in the answer that the time frame for delivery was adjusted accordingly. How does that answer my question? Ms Budden, Mr Mayor.
Ms Budden?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. The detailed cost analysis of all alternative layouts and concept plans requested by Council is currently underway. Timelines for delivery include contracting external consultants to undertake the work required, internal analysis and scheduling discussion and review by Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Budden. Mr Benny?
The next few questions are from Tina Congress of Dandenong. The first 2 of these relate to a similar location, so I'll read them both and Mr Bosman can respond. Question 1, when is there going to be some interpretive signage at the great new park at 5th Avenue, Dandenong, telling people it is a sensory garden and explaining the concept? And question 2, when are the 2 plants that have gone missing from the garden going to be replaced, and I assume that relates to Fifth Avenue as well. Mr Bosman could respond to both, Mr Mayor.
Mr Bosman.
Mr Mayor, thank you, and through yourself to Tina Congress. There are no proposals to erect signage identifying the Fifth Avenue Park as a sensory garden. All of Council's parks and reserves are designed and constructed to be experienced, and in that regard might be considered sensory. The landscaping and plantings at the Fifth Avenue Park, while possibly a little different in the selection of species used elsewhere, has not been specifically designed and constructed as a sensory garden, such as that, for example, specifically designed and constructed and signed at Alex Wilkie Reserve. With regard to the second question about the missing plants, Council annually undertakes an infill planting program to address planting losses in our garden beds. This occurs between May and September, which is considered the best planting season. These missing plants will be addressed as part of the upcoming program. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny.
The final question this evening is from Tina Congress of Dandenong. When is the new park at Clough Street, Dandenong, between Foster Street East and Bessley Street going to have signage and furniture installed? At the moment, it is not clear whether there is a park open to the public. Mr Bosman, Mr Mayor.
Mr Bosman.
Mr Mayor, thank you again to Tina Congress. This development of the Clough Street Park is not currently a funded project. However, Council officers will be undertaking a high-level concept plan for the park within the first quarter of the next financial year. Once the draft concept plan has been developed, Council officers will be happy to discuss the plan with the resident. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny. Would you like to table the responses to questions taken on notice?
Yes, Mr Mayor. There was a single public question taken on notice at the last meeting from Mr Earl Misso of Dandenong. That question has now been answered in writing and the details are included in the minutes of this meeting. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Item 4, Officers' Reports, Part 2, 4.1, Contracts, 4.1.1, Contract number 2122-30, Chandler Road Drainage Upgrade Stage 1.
I'll move. It's
Moved
on
by
Calendar
Councillor
Road.
Dark.
It's Calendar Road, not Chandler Road, but I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. That's why I need to put my glasses back on. Second by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Item 4.2, Finance and Budget, 4.2.1, 2022 to 2023, Proposed Capital Works Program. Councillor Long.
I'm declaring a conflict of interest in this item. My interest is a direct material conflict of interest of a non-pecuniary nature because I'm the president of the Dandenong Day Nursery who are receiving capital funding. Thank you.
Councillor Long. Councillor Long will remove herself from the chamber. Councillors, 4.2 Finance and Budget, 4.21, 2022 to 2023, Proposed Capital Works Program. Moved by Councillor Garrett, seconded by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried.
Sorry, I'm going to make a statement.
Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say it's very pleasing that in this resource-constrained post-COVID environment that we were still able to deliver a $50 million body of work, including the Keysborough South Community Hub, Stage 2, at a cost of $10.68 million, $500,000 for the Stage 3 of the District Insect Park in Tatterson Park Precinct, and importantly, $26 million in asset renewal. It is critical that the Council continue capital spending to stimulate local employment, businesses and supplies in the face of COVID uncertainties.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I wish to also rise to, I suppose, thank the officers for the work that they've done in preparing this Capital Works program. There is no question that COVID has substantially affected our bottom line, but to be able to deliver some key infrastructure for the Keysborough and Keysborough South area is something that I think is is very, very important, and it is always exciting to see some things get funded. Whilst I do have some of my constituents who do refer to progress and updates continuously in a negative light and refer to upgrades of waterways as a green slimy puddle, as we heard earlier this evening, I am very, very proud that in the Keysborough ward we have over $1.2 million in capital works programs delivering into my ward. Now that includes the north field of the Wokta Reserve lighting plan, the redesign there, the second stage of the Wokta Reserve playground, which is a playground for many, many, many years has not had any investment. Stage 1 was funded in the last year, and now we're entering stage 2 with an additional $750,000. It's something that the local residents I know have been screaming out for and are very, very excited. And that is on top of the other things we're seeing as well across all of the wards, ensuring that we are now upgrading infrastructure, whether it be footpaths, roads, parks, playgrounds, ensuring that our residents have the best facilities available.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. If there's no further speakers, I will call Councillor Long back in. Move on to 4.2.2, proposed 2022-23 budget. Moved by Councillor Dark, second by Councillor Garrard. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. And apologies, I just quickly jumped up and hit my microphone. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I wish just to also reiterate, as I previously said, to thank the officers for the work in preparing this budget. As I mentioned before, COVID has seriously affected council's budget, and we're not the only council. I think every council has experienced, in some level, one way, shape or another, a significant hit to the bottom line. We are fortunate enough where we do use a differential system to ensure that we do mitigate as much of the council burden on people who are struggling, particularly the residential sector. And council is acutely aware of our residents who, a significant portion are retirees and live below the poverty line, and people who have low-income jobs, and having a substantial council rates notice can be the difference between having your electricity bill and having heating and cooling in summer and winter. So to ensure that we do have the commercial industrial sector that can absorb a burden of the amount of rates that we have as well, the benefit being that the industrial sector and the commercial sector do have the ability of writing off their rates into their BAS statements and receiving GST credits however they claim it, and that is a significant part. So thank you for the officers once again and my colleagues for supporting this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. It's important to remember that this is very much a COVID-impacted budget to the tune of about $24 million, both in costs of supporting the community during the pandemic and through reduced income. The Council has done an extraordinary job in supporting those in need during COVID to the tune of $413,000 on top of normal support since COVID began. So in spite of overarching issues that are reducing income of local councils, such as the pandemic, rate capping and cost shifting from both state and federal governments, the budget of the City of Greater Dandenong is in a healthy position.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this year's budget preparation has been the most difficult by far due to the slow and steady deterioration in real income to council due to Victorian government rate capping. And while we all like low rates, that is most definitely having an impact. Secondly, the sudden draining of income and increased expenditure due to COVID. So, Mayor, we're seeing councils across the sector, across Victoria, proclaim that due to input costs rising faster than rates, services may be affected in the future, if not already. But regarding our draft budget of this council, I commend the diligent work of council officers and the difficult but necessary hard decisions to keep this council delivering much-needed quality services and community infrastructure under difficult circumstances. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly, and I thank officers for a very thorough budget under very difficult circumstances. Over the last 2.5 years, Council has received in excess less than what we would normally have received, approximately about $42 million. To be able to come back in the 2022-23 budget of $55.59 million of capital improved projects is a job very well done. So thank you very much. This proposed budget now will go to consultation, and I strongly urge our community to get involved and have a look, and please get back to us during this consultation period. So thank you to all councillors and officers for the 2022-23 proposed budget. Item 4.2.3, proposed long-term financial plan 2022-23 to 2031-32. Moved by Councillor Garrard, second by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. 4.2.4, Asset Plan 2022. Moved by Councillor Garrard, second by Deputy Mayor Foster. Are there any questions? Councillor Garrard.
Through you, Mayor, can I ask the relevant officer, how does this plan respond to the growing threat of climate change?
Mr. Cinquegrano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In addition, this plan, in addition to all of the legislation and the broader policy requirements we've got, we also undertake specific actions with regard to our projects. And this is done through, for example, our building projects, where we apply Council's sustainable buildings policy directly to those projects, and also in a broader fashion with the whole CIP evaluation of projects, where we include an evaluation of both the climate change aspects and sustainability aspects in how we score them and those impacts, and that reflects in the listing of those capital works projects.
Thank you, Mr. Cinquegrano. Any further questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. 4.3, Policy and Strategy. 4.3.1, Complaints Policy. Moved by Councillor Garrard, second by Deputy Mayor Foster. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. 4.3.2, Policy Review, Public Car Share, 2022. Moved by Councillor Garrard.
Second.
Second by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to congratulate the Council on this policy, which is very well aligned with both our sustainability and climate emergency policies. Extremely pleasing that the Council has installed a rapid charger at the new Springvale Community Hub. And I'm actually reading the EV one. This is the car share. Yeah, it's extremely pleasing that we are supporting this car share industry, which is a fledgling industry and has been grossly impacted by COVID. And it is right that we are providing spaces and promoting and supporting this sector.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Councillors, we'll move on to the next item, 4.3.3, Policy Review, Public Electric Vehicle Charging 2022. Moved by Councillor Garrard, second by Deputy Mayor Foster. Are there any questions? Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask the relevant officer, how are we monitoring current demand for charging stations and ensuring the demand is met? Also, I'll just ask the second question, are we applying a gender lens to ensure that the stations are placed in high trafficked areas with adequate lighting to ensure safety?
Mr. Cinquegrano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council's public electric vehicle charging policy requires that providers of electric vehicle charging points within the public parking spaces to provide Council with data on their use. This is primarily in place to ensure that the parking spaces are well used and to understand the impact on the surrounding area. Unfortunately, a number of the older charging points that we have in place, for example at the Dandenong Market and at 8 Balmoral Car Park in Springvale, are unable to provide this data directly due to the technology available at the time. With regard to placing a gender lens over locating, yes, we do. One of the priorities of our policy around the public EV charging is that locations be in highly visible locations, well lit and high traffic areas. And this was driven partly by the review of the policy against the Gender Equality Act 2020 and Council's Diversity, Access and Equity Policy.
Thank you, Mr Cinquegrano. Any further questions, Councillor Garrett? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. 4.4 Other, 4.4.1 South East Advanced Waste Processing. Councillor Garrard.
Mr Mayor, I have an alternate.
Can you please read the alternate?
Don't read the alternate.
Or just the summary?
Mr Mayor, I won't read the whole alternate. I will table the alternate just to state that it is consistent with the officer's recommendation, but it is an elaboration of some of the issues that are also outstanding that are of concern in this waste contract.
Second that, Mayor.
Second by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the alternate motion carried. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. I congratulate and thank my fellow councillors for supporting this alternate. Just to state that up to 8 councils of the 15 original councils in the consortium have either withdrawn or deferred a decision to sign on to the Metro Waste contract, and for very good reasons. Signing on to this policy is like locking your mortgage in at 10% when the variable rates are very low. It is a gamble that is likely not to pay off. It is similar to the desalination plant that has become a costly white elephant. It carries significant financial risk. It places a whole generation of citizens within our municipality for 25 years to uphold this contract. But most importantly, it flies in the face of our current policies of sustainability, of a fully functioning circular economy and our net carbon reduction targets. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I just wish to echo, I suppose, Councillor Garrard's sentiment excluding the carbon net zero. And I do note that on the item it does say that given the likelihood of a carbon price, we just hope that regardless of which government wins it, there's no carbon tax. Certainly, I believe and I echo the sentiment of Councillor Garrard to do with the substantial burden this can potentially put on the council if it's not done right. Whilst I understand that there are several councils that have expressed the same thing, there are several councils who have joined the consortium. There are still many unknowns in terms of the cost perspective, in terms of how it's going to be dealt, and the potential effects that this can have onto this council. To enter into basically a 25-year agreement where this council would be bound to agree to a certain gate charge for a certain period of time is a substantial burden. It would basically, in essence, mean that by the time that this contract came up for renewal, I'd be 55 years old and hopefully at that stage near retirement. But certainly it shows that there is a substantial amount of work that still needs to be done, not only by us, but by the EPA, but by state and federal governments as well. And the potential burden, even if we did progress with this now and we decide to then pull out in the future, the costs that this council then could then be liable for is something that I could not put a council into a position where we would then be paying out potentially tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of dollars in compensation for companies that put forward submission. Whilst I do believe that we definitely do have to find something because we are running out of time to do with the closure of tips and we are having that issue that we must deal with sooner rather than later, I think we still need to make sure that there's still further backgrounding done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Councillors will move on to the next item, 4.4.2, reports on matters discussed at councillor briefing sessions and pre-council meetings on the 15th, 21st and 28th of March and the 4th of April 2022. Moved by Councillor Dark, second by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. 4.4.3 Instrument of Delegation to Members of Council Staff. Moved by Councillor Dark, second by Councillor Garrard. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Item 4.4, List of Registered Correspondence to Mayor and Councillors. Moved by Councillor Lim, second by Councillor Trong. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Item 5, Notice of Motion. There are none, councillors. Item 6, Reports from councillors, delegated members and councillor questions. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I have a couple of questions that I've received from one of my residents and also a resident of the Noble Park North ward as well. They are a ratepayer in my ward through an industrial property in Keysborough. My first question is with regards to Aldi leaving the market premises. What is council doing with regards to finding a tenant? Aldi was contributing a significant rental to council, and how has this affected council's revenue from the market towards council's budget? What is the impact of council losing revenue from the vacant Aldi tenancy on budget preparation for the next financial year?
Ms Hanson.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question. Just clarifying that the former Aldi lease is now managed by DMPL, not by council directly, but by the Dandenong Market now. The formal income from the from the Aldi lease was roughly over $500,000, not 1.2 million. And I just want to restate that at the moment, council will share a 50-50 profit share in any return from the market now under the new management services agreement. But for the 2023, 22 and 23 budget, as documented in the budget papers, council doesn't expect to receive any return from the market as we're in this post-recovery stage.
Thank you, Ms Hanson. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my next question is to the Director of Engineering, Mr Chinkagrana, Acting Director of Engineering, apologies. I have a question regarding the Lindale Sports Pavilion. I'm aware that it's quite an old dated pavilion, and I just want to find out, given the kitchen is quite old, circa 1998, when the pavilion is looking in intention of being renovated or redeveloped.
Mr Chinkagrana.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll take that question on notice. I don't have the renewal program, particularly with the kitchens, with me at the moment.
Thank you, Mr Chinkagrana. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my next question was some correspondence I received from Brenton Boland of the Keysborough Tennis Club. The gate at the side of the property has been broken for quite some time and been hanging open. I'm aware that there has been some information put forward to council in terms of a merit. I just want to find out when we're expecting the completion and repair of the gate to be done.
Mr Chinkagrana.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The fault in particular is an electronic digital device that allows, that's part of the Booker Court system, and there's been a process of iterative analysis trying to work out what the problem is, but they've done as much as they can remotely, and they're now moving out on site to have a look at the hardware, and that's occurring tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr Chinkagrana. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Some of the events that I've attended over the last couple of weeks, there were several events, and I hope everyone had a good, restful, double long weekend, I suppose, and for those that were lucky enough to get the 4 days off between 2 long weekends, had 2 weeks off on leave, so hopefully everyone came back refreshed and had a good Easter time. I'm aware that it's also the month of Ramadan as well for our Islamic community. It's Jewish, I believe it's Passover, and then there's also the Vishai, I believe I mispronounced that, with regards to the Sikh community. I had the opportunity to attend a vigil with yourself, Mayor, and also former Councillor Matthew Kerwin and Councillor Garrard. I knew there was somebody else. With the local Hazaran community, there's been some tragedies recently being with the Taliban taking back control of Afghanistan and the issues around attacks against the local Hazaran community. There's been recent bombings of schools where kids are attending the school, some of the biggest schools where children are simply trying to receive an education. And the Taliban, after taking control, have put in some very, very, very strong policies and orders in place which work against all the work that had previously been done about gender equality and equity within the Afghan community. There was a lot of residents who attended who had recently lost relatives, siblings, family members, friends of the recent bombings that have been occurring. And the information certainly coming out of Afghanistan has been very, very hard to get, given the restrictions of the Taliban on the democratic free media. And we're then resulted with local communities receiving any information they could get through any of the social media apps that they have access to get some information out. It was a very moving ceremony. I would say there'd be in excess of 150, 200 people that were there coming to the vigil to commemorate the loss. I also attended the South East United's annual Iftar. It's a very, very good event. The soccer club is Greater Dandenong's fastest growing soccer club, I believe. They've had a 66% growth over year to year. They've launched children's programs, female soccer programs. They've launched soccer programs for the mums to also go out and play soccer and to bring the community together. It's something that the Turkish community have not had for a long time, other than attending the local schools and the local mosques, to be able to get out and celebrate and have involved with the local sports. Particularly, I suppose, a special shout out to Signage and Ali Bozen, who I know are two very big key workers of the South East United Soccer Club, and I know that they have been having a lot of conversations with the council about the future locations of them as they grow at such a rapid pace, ensuring that council can facilitate them. I also attended the Bengali New Year that was held at Keysborough Secondary College in Isaac Road. It was organised by the Bengali Puja Cultural Society of Victoria and the Bengali Arts Centre of Victoria, and they're actually a group who's been meeting at the Keysborough Secondary College for several years now. They are recipients of some grants through the state government and through the federal government. They held a very, very large event. A lot of people came from across the area in the municipality, a lot from the Noble Park area as well, which was interesting to see. I also attended the Dandenong Thunder versus Melbourne Knights with yourself, and that was one of the bigger soccer accommodation of the facilities that we have and the biggest soccer matches with the Albanian versus the Croatian community. Congratulations to Dandenong Thunder for their victory. And that is everything I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Mayor. Just first of all, I would like to thank Vanessa Duncan, Community Services for 10 years of service to the Greater Dandenong City Council. On the 26th of April, I had a meeting with meeting with one of the monks from the temple, the east part of Melbourne, to come to discuss with me regarding to fundraising for flood victims in New South Wales and Queensland. And after that, I just had a chance to meet Minister of Finance and Government Regulation, Mr. Danny Pearson, Mr. Meng Hieng Tak from Clarinda Ward, and also Sabah members. We had a good tour around Springwell Activity Centre, and after that we had a long lunch, to discuss about how to activate or to revitalize Springwell Activity Centre. I gave him all my point of view, my vision, and he's very happy about what my vision all about, and he promised that he's going to come to see me more frequently, and he's willing to work with me for the near future, in the near future. And also on Thursday the 14th of April as well, I attend with Mayor Councillor Jim Ameti and also Councillor Angela Long, attend what we call the launch of Sandown Community Support Funds of Greyhound Entertainment. On Saturday and Sunday night, Cambodians celebrate their New Year. That's the three-day consecutive day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. I had a chance to attend Friday and Saturday night. My point is they invited me to inform my community about the flood victim that, suffer very badly in Queensland and New South Wales. My point is just raise my awareness that ask all my community to donate through LIMS Pharmacy. And also not just that, I also informed them about in the near future we're going to organize fundraising for Monash children, especially walk with Monash on the 22nd of May. I would like to invite all the councillors, if possible, to join us, and with Lana Formoso as well, Councillor Lana, to join us to walk for Monash children. And also on the 29th, a week later, I'm going to organize flower ceremony at Buddharangsai Temple as well to raise funds for Monash Emergency Department as well. And also on the Wednesday, the 20th of April, I attend Citizenship Ceremony with Mayor Councillor Jim Amati, also with Deputy Mayor Eden Foster, and also with Meng Hieng Tak, the MP of Clarinda. On Monday, the 25th of April, I attend, on the Anzac Day, actually yesterday, I attend dawn service at Springwell RSL, and also at 9 a.m. attend Vietnamese Veteran Anzac Day Ceremony, and also at 10:30 to 12 at Dandenong RSL Anzac Day as well. Actually, on the Friday, the 22nd of April, I would like to thank to Mayor Jim Amati, join us with Honourable Claire O'Neill, Shadow Minister of Aged Care, and also Minister of Australian Senior Citizen. We had a great discussion at that time with all the business owners in Springvale, to discuss about how to improve Springvale. And each business owner have the chance to talk to Claire O'Neill, express their interest, how to improve Springvale to become a better place. And all of them are mostly similar vision as me. And the most important, Mayor emphasized about his passion and my passion for Springvale as well. Thanks for that. My first question is just want to follow up my question many weeks ago, because according to email from Mr. Fiedler, we received some fund for project that we can do some sort of performance activity and events in our city, especially Springvale Central, Dandenong, and Noble Park. Up to now, we haven't got anything except only one event only on Clean Up Australia Day. Do we still have some fun to organize those sort of activity at each activity center? Thanks. Yeah, Mayor.
Ms. Budin.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take that on notice, Councillor Lim, and we'll follow that up with you directly after this.
Thank you, Ms. Budin. Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Mayor. The second question, just follow-up question as well. According to Mr. Brian Rodriguez, his request from the council a couple of weeks ago, he emailed to the council as well. He keeps asking me almost every week, about the permit to perform music in Springvale Activity Centre. And he's really want to perform on the regular basis, and it been every day, because a lot of people request him to do that because they enjoy his music, and also they have a good feeling about the music as well. And also he willing to provide me some petition in the very near future. Have a lot of people sign petition to request him to play the music at the market. Therefore, at least make Springvale more lively. Thanks for that.
Mr. Bosman.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Councillor Lim, I am aware of the request by this gentleman. We have had communication with him. There are processes and permits, etc., that need to be applied for. I will take the question on notice, follow up where we are in respect of those communications, and I'll come back to you and share that with the councillors. But I am aware of his earlier request, and I do know that there has been communication with him.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman, and also thank you, Mayor. That's all from me. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Lin. Councillor Long.
These are some of the events that I've attended since my last formal meeting. 14th of April, I attended the launch of the Sandown Community Support Fund at the Sandown Greyhounds. 24th of April, I attended the Semvac Easter Festival at Burton Park, Springvale. 25th of April, Anzac Day, I attended the dawn service for the Dandenong RSL. Later that morning, I attended the Vietnamese service at the Dandenong RSL. After that service, I marched down to the Pillars of Freedom and attended the 11 o'clock Anzac service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wong. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. As Councillor Dark alluded to, yourself, Councillor Dark and I attended a vigil organised by the Hazara Shia communities in Melbourne in solidarity with the victims of terrorist attacks in Kabul in Afghanistan. Many were young children attending school and also other attacks on mosques when many worshippers lost their lives. It was profoundly sad to hear of these continuing human rights abuses and see the burden the Hazara community here in Dandenong carry in witnessing the loss of their loved ones. We ask that the government act quickly to accept Afghan refugees, eliminate temporary protection visas and adequately support the community at this very difficult time. It's important to note that through our mayoral task force, we will be asking federal candidates in the upcoming election to state their position in supporting refugees and asylum seekers, and we'll make this information publicly available. Like almost all councillors, I also attended the Anzac Day Commemoration, in which we paid respects to those who sacrificed their lives and to those who returned with the scars of war. It's a very good reminder of the need to continue to fight for peace, and the very best way to fight for peace is not, in fact, preparing for war, but, in fact, continuing to fight for peace. It was with deep sadness this week that most of us were informed that our fellow councillor, Lana Formoso's son, has been diagnosed with leukaemia. And our hearts go out to her at this time. And we hope that she is back with us very soon. She has asked that if we wish to support her, as Councillor Lim alluded to, that we attend the walk to raise funds for the Monash Children's Hospital and that we donate blood, which is in short supply at this time. And most of us will put the link to her son's fundraising page on our web pages so that people want to make a donation. They certainly can. There is no more distressing news than to hear that your child is so unwell. But we all know that Councillor Formosa is an incredibly strong woman. We know that they will get through this, and she knows that we're all in support and that we are all there for her. My questions tonight. My first question is, can we be provided with an update on discussions regarding the placement of a cemetery in the flood zone in the city of Greater Dandenong?
Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, to date, as far as Council can ascertain, there is no formal rezoning application being considered by the State Planning Department, so there's still nothing formal. Nonetheless, under the hand of the Mayor, Council has written to both Minister Richard Wynne, as the Minister for Planning, and Minister Lisa Neville, in her role as Minister for Water, and also having carriage of or jurisdiction of Melbourne Water, which is the owner of the land. It's part of her portfolio. Those letters from the Mayor were expressing Council's concern and strong, unequivocal opposition to the proposed development based on the information that we currently have to hand. Minister Neville has responded by referring us to the Minister for Planning as part of the planning process. Minister Wynne has responded in similar vein, advising that should an application be lodged at any stage, the due process, including consultation, would be followed. Approximately 3 weeks ago, Council's CEO has separately written to the CEO of Melbourne Water, seeking an urgent meeting to discuss this matter, and unfortunately a response to that request is still awaited. As soon as I become aware of any developments in this proposal, I shall be sure to update councillors without delay. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr Bosman. And on behalf of the residents of City of Dandenong, we thank you for your work in this area. My second question is, can we have an update on the progress in transitioning the council to be gas-free by 2025, as per our climate emergency policy?
Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, I'm going to do a bit of a tic-tac with Mr Chinkungrana. So I'll answer the first part, which will give the context for a further response from him. The 2020 Sustainable Buildings Policy specifically prohibits the connection of natural gas to new council buildings, ensuring any future developments are all electric. Officers are currently undertaking a gas transition feasibility study to inform options for retrofitting existing council assets, prioritising the larger users of energy first. The feasibility study will be tabled for Council's consideration by the end of the calendar year. Additionally, officers have undertaken various advocacy activities at both an individual council and Greenhouse Alliance level to secure funding commitments and support for gas transition works ahead of both the state and federal elections.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Chinquegrano.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I can confirm that all of our new projects we approach the energy management from the point of view of being gas-free for those projects.
Thank you, Mr Chinquegrano. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. My next question is, can we have an update on the federal advocacy strategy? Who have we had contact with, and have we received any commitments of support on any of our issues?
Ms Sprague.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Garrard. Through you, Mr Mayor. Council's advocacy strategy and priorities are detailed on our website and being promoted through various means. There have been over 400 visits to the webpage since it was launched in March. Articles have appeared in the Journal newspaper, the Council News magazine, social media posts, the Bicycle Network website, and we are regularly pitching story ideas around our priorities to other media outlets. SBS Radio were also at the Dandenong Market on Saturday, speaking to local candidates about how they would work for Greater Dandenong if elected. Postcards, which I have here, with a direct link to the advocacy page on our website, have been produced and distributed. These were sent out to all election candidates along with a letter from the Mayor. An offer was also made to those candidates to meet with the Mayor and CEO to discuss these priorities in further detail should they wish to do so. To date, this offer has been taken up by both sitting and potential candidates from various parties. Some meetings have already been held and others are scheduled over the coming weeks. The only firm commitment of support to date is for $20 million towards the Dandenong Aquatic Centre by the Federal Labor Party should they be elected in May.
Thank you, Ms Sprague. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. My final question is, when will the City of Greater Dandenong's First Nations Gathering Place feasibility study results be going public?
Ms Budin.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I note that the draft report was due for finalisation in June. However, I also note that consultation is still ongoing, so we'll take that partially on notice and I'll provide you with a further update on the status.
Thank you, Ms Budin. Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Deputy Mayor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. I first would like to start off by reiterating what Councillor Garrard shared with us today about Councillor Formoso's son being diagnosed with leukemia, and I really strongly encourage the community to support the cause in terms of the walk for Monash Children's Hospital on the 22nd of May. I'll be there. I know Councillor Garrard will be there, and I'm sure many here in the chamber will be there as well. I know that Councillor Formoso has really backed the community so much in not just as councillor but as a resident as well, and I think the least that we can do is to show our support for her during this difficult time. In the past couple of weeks I've been quite busy. It's been school holidays, so I've been able to attend a lot of events, but I paid a visit to the Noble Park branch of the Association of Ukrainians and had a good conversation with the community there, and I know that they've been going through a difficult time at the moment with what's happening in Ukraine. It has come to my attention that the children and the women that have arrived in Australia that are supported by the community there. They're not necessarily receiving a lot of support in terms of counselling support to help them, I guess, work through the trauma that they're going through. So I know this one is without notice, but is there anything that the relevant officer could offer in terms of perhaps some suggestions or maybe connection with the Association of the Ukrainian Noble Park branch to perhaps link them in with relevant supports? Thank you.
Ms Budin.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you for sharing that. We'll ask the relevant officers to follow that up directly with yourself and with the group.
Thank you, Ms Budin. Deputy Mayor Foster.
Okay, thank you, Ms Budin. So some other events, as Councillor Lim said, I attended the Citizenship Ceremony, and it is a lovely ceremony to attend, seeing new migrants, or not so new for some people, have been here many years, but to then get their citizenship, which is quite a lovely, moving moment. I believe there were about 115 migrants who became Australians that day. I also attended the Noble Park RSL Anzac Day Thursday Commemoration March and Service on the 21st of April, and the SEMVAC Easter Festival on the 24th of April. It was great to be able to mark 1 year of the open day of their office there. So it was a lovely celebration, very colourful, and really reflects our diversity. And like all the other councillors, I attended the Anzac Day services. I won't repeat them here, but they were very moving, and great to see the community come out and support our veterans. Moving on to my questions, or more questions. I note that it's sort of for the first time in about over 30 years, Muslims, Jews, Christians and Sikhs have celebrated religious holidays at the same time this year. Doesn't happen very often, but it's great that we've been able to celebrate, in no particular order, Ramadan, Vaisakhi, Passover and Easter. And I think it reflects the diversity and the multiculturalism, something that we pride ourselves in the city of Greater Dandenong. This question is without notice, Mayor. Given that we do pride ourselves based on our multiculturalism and our diversity, how has Council recognised these religious celebrations, given that we tend to recognise Christian celebrations, so Christmas and Easter, and as a Catholic myself, I do appreciate that we recognise that, but I can understand that there are many groups in our community that perhaps feel that they may not get recognised in that. So just wondering how we do promote that through social media, through perhaps even banners in our activity centres. So through you, Mr Mayor.
Ms Budin.
Thank you for that question. There's many different cultural and different groups that receive funding and other support to run many different events across the municipality, and I know that's something that Council continues to support ongoing. As to the detail of your question, I'll take that on notice and we'll provide more information.
Thank you, Ms Budin. Deputy Mayor Foster.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to clarify as well, I guess it's more about, I mean, I'm sure the different community groups really appreciate the funding that we do get, or that they do get through grants, but I guess also promoting that maybe through our social media, but also just in our city streets as well, would be nice to demonstrate and celebrate that our religious diversity.
Ms Sprague.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll work with Ms Verdun and we'll come up with a response and do some more investigation into that. I guess if it's promoting particular events in our community, we're more than happy to do that. So we have our events calendar back up in the Council News, and we have our online events calendar back up and running. We've also reinstigated just last week our What's On calendar of events. So any events that are happening in our community, we'd love to be able to promote those far and wide. We encourage people, individuals, community groups to send us the information. There's an online form to submit details about any event, celebration, anything going on in our city, and that's the best way for us to know about it and then be able to promote it.
Thank you, Ms Bragg. Deputy Mayor Foster.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I guess also, sorry, just a follow-up. I know that events, and we do promote events, but I suppose religious practices and religious traditions like Ramadan, for example, or Passover, there may not be specific events, and to be honest with, there are a lot of iftars going on at the moment where many of us as councillors are invited, but I guess it's more in terms of the recognition of these religious traditions that we do that. We wish everyone a Merry Christmas on the 25th of December, but perhaps even as Eid will be coming up soon, perhaps even considering wishing, our Muslim brothers and sisters a happy Eid when that time comes up, and it could be on our social media. But I might move on to my next question. Bear with me whilst I sort my pages. So I will move on to some questions about the Hemming Street precinct. I note that one of the residents did ask some questions about the 16 trees, the trees that have been deemed unhealthy. I also note that the Hemming Street precinct plan has been put on hold following some of these workshops and consultation with community. Can I just confirm whether the removal of these 16 unhealthy trees will also be put on hold?
Ms Budin.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, I can confirm that the entire tree project, including any removal of potential 16 trees, has been put on hold pending further consultation. An open opportunity for public consultation will occur in June, and we'll come back to Council for further discussion in July.
Thank you, Ms Budin. Deputy Mayor Foster.
And just for clarification, will that public open consultation in June involve councillors as well?
Ms Budin.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. It'll be open to all who are interested, including councillors.
Thank you, Ms Budin. Deputy Mayor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess there has been concern that's raised by residents in terms of the upcoming workshop that does exclude councillors. I guess for the purposes of transparency, can I ask the relevant officer to explain why us councillors have been excluded from that workshop?
Ms Budin.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. There's a specific action group associated with a grant project that's externally funded that is stipulated as a closed group as part of the grant conditions that we operate under, and that consists of community representation and service providers. So that group is serving its purpose within the grant parameters. However, we are very keen to ensure there's opportunities for open consultation, particularly with regards to the tree matter, but also anything else we're doing in that area. So we'll be having those broad open consultations as well.
Thank you, Ms Budin. Deputy Mayor Foster.
And so just to clarify as well, with feedback from perhaps the next workshop that's coming up, will councillors be provided with that feedback, perhaps with residents present, or so I guess to provide for transparency?
Ms Budin.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I understand a summary sheet was going to be prepared regarding that, but I'll take that on notice and confirm.
Thank you, Ms Budin. Deputy Mayor Foster.
No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. I've attended many events that have been mentioned by other councillors. Mayor, I've got a question regarding the Greater Dandenong Open Space Strategy, specifically the Public Open Space Acquisition Fund. This strategy and policy was set up to purchase land for open space, to increase equity of access to open space to residents throughout our municipality. So the question, without notice to the Director of Planning, is may I get a report on the progress of Council's open space acquisition strategy, including a map of areas in the municipality in most need of open space, with an overlay of the locations of Council's acquisitions since the policy's inception.
Mr Bosman.
Mr Mayor, happy to take the question on notice, Councillor. There's a fair amount of detail, obviously, that's involved in that. I'll still have it, try and come back to you and the other councillors as quickly as possible with that detail. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor O'Reilly, thank you. Councillor Trong.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On the yesterday Friday, I worked with Sigma to collect the money on the street for the Royal Children's Hospital. I done this one about 30 years already, since 1991 to now. And this year we got about over $13,000 by working on yesterday Friday. With the on 24th, I attend with the other councillor and the mayor and deputy mayor, and then Councillor Angela Long, Councillor O'Shonelly. We celebrate about the first year that City Dandenong helped us have the office in Burden Park. On behalf of SEMVAC, I would like to take state hand on the CEO and also director who concern on the look on the need of the Vietnamese people to to help them to have the place like that to help. They run the office for 6 days per week from Monday to Saturday, and on Saturday have 3 lawyers work there to help the people. A very good one, and many people come to ask for help. We help over 5,200 cases already, without any payment or any help from financial help from governments. But all of our volunteers work very hard, and they love their job. We have over there. They have also have an English class with some OG people involved to teach English, and also they have a citizenship class because to train the people how to to get the faster test to get the citizenship. And thankful Mayor they say very many good things about them to last day. And on 25th of April, I attended dawn service at Pillar, and also at John Witt March to go to Pillar back again at the noontime and to celebrate the Anzac Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trung. Councillors, I attended a few events over the last fortnight. I attended the 2022 Iftar Dinner hosted by Deakin University and the AIS. I also attended the Noble Park Revitalisation Board meeting, who have been doing a fantastic job with many things happening in Noble Park, and it was good to join that board and look forward to working with them in this 2022 year. I also attended the relaunch of the Sounddown Community Support Fund at Greyhounds Entertainment, which there was 11 recipients, sporting clubs, etc., who received $20,000, and that was the first round. And I'm told that there's going to be a second round this year as well, so look forward for that. I attended the Easter Volleyball Tournament opening ceremony hosted by Volleyball Association Havazaras in Victoria, which is a tournament that they hold every Easter, and it goes over 2 days, and there was 20 male teams and 6 junior teams, mixed male and female actually, so it was good to be going to that tournament, and I think it's something on the calendar now that happens every year, and it's got a huge participation, so that was great to be involved in that. I also attended the Iftar Dinner hosted by the Taha Humanity Association of Victoria. I attended that evening with Mr Julian Hill, the federal member for Bruce. The Taha community welcomed both of us. It was great to be in attendance with them that evening, and we were both awarded a certificate of appreciation, which I've got upstairs in my office. Forgot to bring it downstairs, but and I thank them for that. I had the Consulate General of the Republic of North Macedonia from Melbourne, Miss Sonia Zogravska-Kretevska, visited Greater Dandenong, and I thank Ms Budin, who was present in that meeting. We discussed the contribution of people from Košava, from North Macedonia, who have been in the Greater Dandenong area for about 59 years, since 1963, and I took her for a visit to the Košava Park and Košava Grove and told her about the history of Košava residents and Greater Dandenong, which she was very surprised, so it was good to introduce her to our Greater Dandenong community. Like many other councillors, we had another citizenship ceremony, which was very pleasing, always to see the recipients receiving their certificate and the smiles, and some people have been waiting 10 years, 15 years. It's just unbelievable why they have to wait so long, but who continue to work and raise their families. And when I hand over the certificate, just see that big smile is just very rewarding, so I really enjoy that. I attended with Deputy Mayor the Noble Park RSL Anzac Day Commemoration March and Service. The Noble Park RSL do a fantastic job, and they both made Deputy Mayor Foster and myself very welcomed, and we enjoyed being in their company as well. I also attended the meeting with Claire O'Neill and Councillor Lim and the business community of Springvale, who have got so many fantastic ideas, and the member for Hotham, Claire O'Neill, was listening, and if in government, I'm sure she has some plans for Springvale, and it was great to meet up with the business community as well, and Councillor Lim. I also attended the launch of Collective Impact. It's a group of businesses that have come together to provide services helping young people in employment under the banner of Social Engine. It's great to see businesses that are out there wanting to support youth. As you know, City of Greater Dandenong is probably one of the highest youth unemployment in the country. It used to be well over 25%. I think it's come down to about 20%. It's still unacceptable, and it's great to see that some business people have come together and want to employ more that were sort of like underprivileged youth, and some of them spoke on the morning about how this social engine enterprise has helped them. And as they spoke, and you could see and hear their voices, that this has been extremely important for them and how rewarding it has been. So I congratulate them and look forward to hearing many more good stories about collective impact. I also attended the official launch of the Greater Dandenong My Place, My Community art mural with Councillor Garrard. I think it was on Saturday morning. What a beautiful mural, and it was good to see the youth of our community get involved with some artists and the whole mural. What a great wall. It's actually spruced up the area when you walk into the market, and it was a great event, and I look forward to showing it off to other people. I think the more murals we got, art is very interesting, and I love seeing it, especially in our city. So it was great to be there as well. I also attended the South East United Football Club Ramadan Iftar Dinner with Councillor Dark. Yes, Sinan Akert is the president, and he's a phenomenal guy, very passionate about his community, very passionate about football, and he's grown that club 66% last year, which is phenomenal, as many other clubs are declining through the pandemic. It's great to see the passion, the family club. It's got junior female teams, senior female teams, as Councillor Dark said. To start the club, Sinan had his wife play in the senior team last year. She didn't know how to kick a ball, so this is how far they've come along. And also they had special guests there. There was a representative from Football Federation Victoria with the national Afghan soccer team there as well, present that evening. So Sinan does a great job in including different nationalities, and it was great to be there as well. Also attended after that the game between Dandenong Thunder and St Albans at George Andrews Reserve. The NPL is Dandenong Thunder, the biggest club in the city always attracts large crowds, and there was in excess of over 1,000, 1,500 people there, and Dandenong Thunder did win actually, so it was a good evening. I also attended the SEMVAC first anniversary open day. As Councillor Trong said, they do some fantastic work, and I must applaud them. The work that they do, local councils wouldn't be able to do that, and with the support of our community groups, you know, teaching people how to speak English, teaching people how to pass a citizenship test ceremony, helping people through the pandemic. So 888 Heatherton Road is home to SEMVAC, and it was great to be there to celebrate their first birthday at that location. I also attended the 2022 Anzac Match Luncheon at Noble Park Football Club, who played Berwick. It was great to be at the Noble Park Football Club, being our premier football club in the city, who also attract large crowds, and it was a big crowd at Noble Park, and it was good to be there and share that match with them. I also attended the community event, the Vigil for Hazaras at Harmony Square. We stood side by side and condemned the violence in Afghanistan to the minority Hazara community group. Bombs where innocent children are, it's just unforgivable, and it was so sad to hear the many, many stories of the tragic events that continue to occur in Afghanistan to the Hazara community. I also attended the Vietnam Veterans Anzac Day service at the Dandenong RSL, and also the Anzac Day Commemoration service at the Dandenong Pillars of Freedom. You know, so many people have passed away, our people who have served in our military, female and male, and it was, you know, a time that we can reflect and lest we forget what they have done for this country. I also had a radio interview this morning with ABC with Virginia Trioli, Meet the Mayor segment. It was great to be on ABC radio this morning, and it was even better to hear Dandenong residents ring up, and as most of the questions were asking about better improvements and rubbish and how we can make the city better. But it was great to be in contact with those residents through the ABC radio, and I look forward to following up and doing what I said I was going to do on the radio program, making our city better and safer. I'd like to wish our community, you know, we had Ramadan at the moment, Passover, Easter and Vaisakhi. It's great that we can celebrate all our faith groups this month, and I'd like to wish our Muslim community Ramadan Mubarak for Monday, which is the Eid. As other councillors said, we pray for our Councillor Lana Formosa and her son Luca, who is not well at the moment. There's a fundraiser for Walk for the Monash Children's Hospital on 22nd of May, and we will all support the team Luca's Aid in Walk for Monash Children's Hospital on the 22nd, and our thoughts and prayers are with Lana and her family, and wish Luca a speedy recovery. That's all from me, councillors. Mr. Benny to table a response for questions taken at notice at previous meeting.
Sorry, Mayor, I just would like to have a final word. Just regarding to fundraising, just would like to every councillor, if possible, try to raise awareness to every resident of your ward to understand about Monash children, support our community in the southeast, and the best hospital in the world, very modern. And if anyone wants to join me to see Monash children, I don't mind to organize a tour for everyone to have a look, because Monash children need a lot of money, especially modern medication costs a lot, especially cancer drug. And also Monash need money to buy more brand new equipment and also employ more staff. Therefore, please, if we can, advocate very strongly for Monash health and Monash children, very grateful. The most important Monash Children Emergency Department start to operate now, but still not officially open yet. But I'm going to have a celebration with the director, the professor, whatever, on the 12th of May. I would like to probably invite Mayor and some other councillors if possible. The reason, because we just want to acknowledge all the donors. In my community, just only me in Springvale Central, like last year we organized what we call flower ceremony, where we raised over $100,000, and also even Channel 9 joined us as well. And also the last 2 months, like in the December to February, we raised over $5,700. And 2 months later, last Thursday, we raised our $8,000 something, $8,200 as well, just from my community only. What happened if every community in our city, we're going to make a big difference for our Monash children? That I would like to ask everyone to come, to help us for that reason, because last Thursday I invited the Monash Health Director again to come to collect the money every 2 months. It means that we are very important. Finally, I just like to let everyone know about this. Yeah, because it's very exciting to see Springvale on the map of Australian map in the Age newspaper today. Thanks for Ms. Carly Prague to give us this article, and also a few weeks ago about what we call postcard on Channel 9 as well about Springvale. At least Springvale is on the map of Australia now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lim. Mr Benny?
Yes, Mayor, there were 20 councillor questions taken on notice at the last meeting. They've all been answered, and the responses are included in the minutes.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Item 7, urgent business. If there's no urgent business, I declare the meeting closed at 9:16 p.m.
Hi. Hi, how you going?
Thank you, how are you?
Good, good, I'm sure. Nice to meet you.
I'm Joanne Fletcher.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Do you have any